Let's start by looking at how a recession affects consumer confidence.
Okay, first of all, let me just say that even prior to the formal declaration of recession, there had been issues around consumer confidence in Nigeria as a result of the changes that had emerged in the economy in the past 1 year plus. And it affects consumer confidence in a number of ways. When there is reduced economic activity, where there's stagflation, a situation where there's increase in inflation, there's decline in economic activity, consumers become really concerned about their future. And one of the consequences is that consumer disposable income is on the decline because their wages is not increasing correspondingly to inflation. And as a consequence, their purchasing power is declined. And leading from there is that consumers begin to reprioritize what they spend money on.
Now, how would you describe the Nigerian example, the Nigerian situation? Consumers in the Nigerian economy, at what level is their confidence at this time?
For Nigerian consumers, it is relatively still high compared to other markets. And I'll provide the context for that. The average Nigerian consumer is a generally optimistic person. And when people ask me why, it's essentially the philosophy I call the God Day philosophy. The Nigerian consumer still believes that he can wake up in the morning and there's the Almighty that will help somehow. However, in the past 1 year, the Nielsen consumer confidence checks have shown a decline in consumer confidence in the past 1 year as a result of the challenges around the economy, uncertainties about the economic direction of the country. And so while it is still relatively optimistic compared to some other markets such as Ghana or Kenya and sub-Saharan Africa, the fact that there's a decline is a red flag that consumer confidence is waning, even though it is still above the baseline of 100. So it's this figure above 100. Where the figure is lower than 100 from the Nielsen Consumer Confidence Index, then that's a degree of pessimism. So for Nigeria, it is still above 100, but it has shown some decline in the past 1 year, and which shows that the recession is beginning to affect consumer confidence. But like I said, this waning of consumer confidence had begun even before the formal declaration of recession.
Okay, now let's look at it this way. Do you see Nigerian consumer confidence as reflecting any state of deep fear, as it were?
It is not necessarily a deep fear, but a concern about what the future brings. Now, the confidence index measures 3 key parameters. One is what the consumers feel about the job prospects for the future. Secondly, what they feel about their financial prospects for the future. And thirdly, what their intention to spend money on the short term is. And on all those 3 parameters, there has been decline in the past 1 year. Now, what the consumer is concerned about is tomorrow. So they are less confident about tomorrow than they were over a year ago. So why it hasn't come to a state of deep fear, there are concerns about tomorrow, about the uncertainty of tomorrow, and they begin to respond accordingly to those uncertainties.
But do you agree that the economy, there are indications that the economy might pick up towards the end of the second quarter to the third quarter?
In terms of, right now we're already in the third quarter of the year.
Sorry, towards the second quarter to Q4.
To Q4. I think that there are indications. Now, one of the key things that consumers are beginning to do is that they're holding back in terms of spending money. Essentially, they don't have that much disposable income anyway. So they're reprioritizing in terms of what they spend money on. And because of inflation around food costs, inflation in transportation costs, those are areas that they're reprioritizing and spending money on. And they're beginning to spend less money on branded items and other things, luxury goods that are not so essential at this point in time. Now, the indications are that with increased spending by the government, looking at addressing issues around infrastructure and stimulating the economy, there hopefully should be a bit more money within the economy. Secondly, oil prices have stabilized, and therefore, hopefully, government will be able to get a bit more revenue to spend on. And with the stimulation of the economy, we can then hope that there's a bit more disposable income available to consumers. And once economic activities increases and consumers have clarity around the direction of the economy, and also ensuring that the naira against the dollar and other convertible foreign exchange currencies is also a bit more stable, then we can expect a bit more confidence to come through from consumers.
Now, Nigerian consumers are known to be very, more disposed towards luxury items, wonderful goods, imported, fancy things, and for Nigerian, for the consumers to have been moving away from that. What does it portend?
Okay, so hopefully this is a temporary situation.
Okay.
But I think it's just wisdom at this point in time for consumers to begin to reprioritize and look at what they spend money on. And it just makes sense to spend money on what is really important and fundamental at the moment to take care of tomorrow. So I think it's just sensible, it's pragmatic, so to do. And once the economy begins to pick up, we'll expect that consumers will begin again to trade up to some of the items that they may have dropped. But the key thing to note is that they may not be dropping this totally. There are three key ways in which consumers are responding to the economic climate at the moment. One is that they are switching to maybe more affordable brands or categories. Second is that they are swapping and looking at different, say for example, alternatives, pack formats, more affordable options. And third is that they are squeezing. And what that means is that they may still continue to use what they're currently using, but they reduce frequency of usage and or reduce the amount they use at a point in time. For example, if they used to consume cocoa beverages twice a day, they may reduce that to once a day. But they don't totally leave the category. So even if they're used to a certain luxury item, they may not completely leave, but they may reduce amount or frequency of usage.
I mean, for example, my colleagues and I used to talk about looking around this our immediate environment where we have very expensive accommodation blocks and all of that. Most of this, in fact, 75%, because I did a little survey as well, 75% of the buildings around us, beautiful as they are unoccupied.
Yes. So this is a season where there's going to be challenges about disposable income to buy such property, because people either will totally not buy at this point in time, or be looking at other locations that are more affordable. And that's really a fact of the current economic climate.
Now, looking at the impact or the implications of these on brands and companies, and how are Nigerian companies, are Nigerian brands shaping up? How are they, I mean, what's the body language? How are they shaping up to this current situation?
It's a currently difficult situation. And as I said earlier on, this began from about the fourth quarter of 2014. And the results of most businesses, especially those in the fast consumer goods segment, annual reports of last year, as an example, showed that most businesses declined versus 2014, both from a turnover perspective and also a profit after tax. The results for the first